I want to show you something cool about democracy. We actually used to have this quite often in Europe. It was called referendums. So every now and then, when a decision of major importance was about to be passed, you would have the government actually ask the people. So it wasn't like voting left wing and you vote for like an entire package of deals. Like, no, maybe you like 95% of the package, but like that 5% really ticked you off. And so people would demand a referendum. And the moment that Brexit happened, Jean-Claude Juncker, the European president at the time, said, if you want to destroy Europe, keep having referendums. And it seems that everyone got the memo, except for Hungary. They had like one more referendum about migration, and that went as you expect. I think like 98% people or so like didn't want migration. But you just stopped having referendums, right? And it's interesting because with referendums, like most of the global homo nonsense simply cannot happen. And you have the Switzerland example where they tried to pass something that passed in the United Kingdom, right? So you have like demagogues talking about the rich, talking about how inheritance destroys equality and all of that. And so they decided to fuck with the farmers. Because fuck the people that make our food seems to be, for some reason, a leftist mantra. And when they tried this in Switzerland, they put it up to a vote. And not only did people have common sense and they said like, no, we're not going to have like 50% inheritance tax because the people that die, they already paid taxes for the shit they have. But more importantly, like this will prevent wealthy people from wanting to live here. So apparently the people in Switzerland are wise enough to realize that rich individuals, like the truly rich individuals, they actually have the ability to move. Like, sure, you know, no one can escape death and taxes, but you can escape the taxes from a particular nation. Like, you can actually do this thing called capitalist flight. And so if you actually look at Switzerland's referendum, they're like constantly like this. And they're going to vote on something interesting in the coming weeks. They're going to vote on whether or not they want to preserve the cash as a payment system. So this is another big thing from a lot of leftist governments that want to have more control on people. Is the idea that all transactions should happen online and preferably be linked to a digital ID. So if you're actually dissenting against the government, you don't really need to put the person in prison. You just like disable their digital ID, transactions don't work. They have this system in China. Like, I don't think that the European Union is capable of innovating new systems. They're literally just copying from China. And in China, that's one of the ways they deal with dissenters. Like, if you're protesting against the banks or the government's interest, they can simply just shut down your ability to use public transport, or they can shut down your ability to make payments. And so they don't need prisons anymore. They don't need jails, right? Like, a person that can't make online transactions, they're harmless. They tried this shit with Nigel Farage in the United Kingdom, if you guys remember. Like, they literally had his bank terminate his accounts, and the reason given was his stance on Brexit. And so I want you to understand the system they're proposing, right? They're proposing that everyone should only have cashless transactions, but at the same time, you know, banks are still private institutions, and they should be able to regulate, like, who can open and who can't close an account. Like, there is currently, like, no law in any nation that wants to push for a cashless society that would force banks to become public utilities. And so who controls the banks pretty much controls freedom in that country. And it's also hand in hand with the ability of tracking someone, right? Like, if you're in a protest, for instance, like the truckers in Canada, well, now they know where the protest leaders are, what they're buying. They can literally stop the protest by preventing people from buying. And so, no sane person actually wants this. But, you know, these things happen without being put up to a referendum or asking people if they want to or not. Like, for instance, if you're in Germany and you don't like the AfD, well, you support the party that is in favor of this. But, like, what if you don't like the AfD and you don't like this as well, right? Like, what are your options? And the answer is none. But in Switzerland, they do have options. They're actually going to vote. And it's very interesting because In Switzerland, they basically said that 2/3 of the population already do not use cash. But despite that, they are also aware, it's like, okay, I don't use it, but what if one day I want to? Why should that option be taken away? And so most people are likely to vote in favor of maintaining the cash payment system. But not only that, I want to point out just how educated the Swiss individuals are. They looked at other nations, like they look at Australia. And what they noticed is something very interesting, because you can have a law that basically forces every single business to deal with cash. There are certain nations that have that, right? So like, for instance, if you go with money to a store, the store is actually forced to take your money. There are a couple of nations like it. The problem is that if the government like literally wants to have a cashless society, what they can do is they can make it so that the banks don't have ATMs. They can make it so that the banks don't deal with customers anymore, right? Like everything happens online. Online banking is the future. And literally in Romania, there are a couple of banks that decided to close down some ATMs. They, like, if I go to a bank right now and I want to take cash from the lady from behind the desk, like, she can't give me any, because they actually say, it's like, no, we don't work with cash. And so, like, this is a way to withdraw money from circulation. Like, people eventually use the cash in order to pay taxes. The government takes the money and they don't put other money back in circulation. And so, like, cash would become harder to find. And if you do this sustainably over like 10 or 20 years, you can actually end up with a cashless society where, yes, like, if you have money, everyone is forced to take it, but like, will you have money if there's like none in circulation? And so what the Swedish people are saying, it's like, no. Not only do we want to preserve the cash system, but we want to make sure that there is a certain amount of cash within circulation in order to prevent the bullshit that they tried pulling in Australia. And so it's interesting to see that, well, actually, if you do allow the citizenry to partake into referendums that are often, they're actually very educated about political issues, and they seem to be very savvy on the way that they vote. I have no doubt that this will pass, and there's like a couple of other things that they're going to vote on. But I think I'm going to follow Switzerland a little bit more closely in the future, because I do find the referendum system to be quite fascinating. Anyway, if you're from Switzerland, let me know what your take on this is. And as usual, I will see you guys in the comment section. Take care.